Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06. It's O'Connor and Company this Monday morning, the day after, well, the party's over for the Commanders. We got a bit of a hangover here. It was fun while it lasted. It was a great season, a historic season, a great start of the new look and the Jaden Daniels era, but they came up short against the Eagles. No Super Bowl this year, but next year now, that's another story. And coming up in just 30 minutes, we're going to talk to our friend Trevor Matich, and he'll give us a wrap-up on yesterday's game. Then at 8:05, Alfonso Aguilar, formerly of DHS, under President Trump. We'll talk to him about what's going on with Colombia, with Mexico, with Remain in Mexico, with the end of catch and release, and, of course, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, heading down to Latin America, including the first stop in Panama. There's a lot going on there, and we'll get to it at 8:05 with Alfonso Aguilar. It's Larry O'Connor, and that there is Julie Gunlock, dressed like a lumberjack today.
Oh,
you look
come
like the,
on. You are so...
No, you're selling...
Larry hates that. Let's
it's
get
a
to
beautiful shirt.
You
I just feel like
shirt.
you're selling me paper towels.
You know,
or something.
Heather has
I
a
don't
shirt
know
just
what
like this, our producer. Paper. Let's get to Joe. You are horrible.
It's the worst when you two wear it on the same day, too. Women should not wear plaid flannel shirts.
You need to be careful. Joe, this is not a smart
Joe
thing to say to
diGenova
a
agrees
woman,
with me. Joe, don't you agree?
No, Joe.
I love plaid.
Thank you.
Particularly when it's flannel.
Yes, well, mine
All
is
right,
flannel.
fine.
Yes. Well,
Joe diGenova is the former U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, and he joins us now. Lots to get to, Joe. First, just sort of an overall. I mean, have you ever seen a first week from a president with that? And I know that you're not thrilled with all executive orders in general, but so much of what President Trump did via executive order was undoing what Biden had done. That's appropriate to do. But what's your assessment here of what Trump is doing with the presidency?
A++. What he's doing is demonstrating the difference between a person who never should have been president because he was unfit mentally and physically to be president and was kept in office for 4 years by a lying staff, a lying family, all of whom he had to pardon as he exited. And Donald Trump is demonstrating the vigor of a real president, someone with a demonstrable policy package and doing a brilliant job of it. He has overturned every apple cart that needed to be overturned, and as far as I'm concerned, he's doing a brilliant job.
All your friends in the mainstream media, and I know how much you love the folks at legacy brands like the networks and Washington Post, all they want to talk about was the pardons for January 6th, and they're very concerned all of a sudden about violence against police officers, which is heartening to see, I suppose. But it seems like the Trump administration's position was this: listen, it doesn't matter how bad the crime was here related to January 6th, because of the way Merrick Garland's Justice Department went about these prosecutions and investigations, and because the way the U.S. Attorney of the District of Columbia went about them, that sort of spoiled the whole batch of them. Is that fair?
Yes, that's a very good description of the philosophy behind the pardons. It may very well be that you can distinguish between individual pardons and say this one was better than that one or shouldn't have occurred. The problem is when your government loses control of the restraints that we put on them through the Constitution, that government deserves to be evicted. They were evicted on November the 5th, and that philosophy of government, which was a philosophy of the abuse of governmental power against the citizen, ended. And in its place came a more powerfully merciful government that decided it was going to enforce the law the way it had historically been enforced. Let's just remember, when the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Matthew Graves, who skulked out of town and resigned before he could be fired, and Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, decided that they were going to make the January 6 prosecutions the most important federal criminal case in history, they demonstrated a lack of seriousness, a kind of stupidity, and a wasteful approach to federal law enforcement. They could have made the cases they wanted to do against a group of leaders if they could find them. They didn't do that. They went after everybody, grandmothers praying, So what you had was the same thing that you had with the people demonstrating outside of abortion clinics. They prosecuted pro-life people to the nth degree, abusive prosecutions, showing up at people's houses with weapons, tractors, guns, massive amounts of people. Under Merrick Garland, you had the most abusive federal law enforcement since the Palmer raids in the 1920s.
Yeah, Joe, cleaning house is definitely a part of this, the Trump administration's early agenda. And he did, I think it was 18 IGs this weekend, inspectors general across the federal government.
He missed one. He didn't fire Michael Horowitz, the Department of Justice Inspector General, who should have been fired. He needs to go. He gets all kinds of plaudits from Republicans and Democrats. He's not the right guy for the job. He's been there too long. This was a marvelous opportunity for Pam Bondi to set the record straight. Now she's going to have someone looking over her shoulder the whole time she's there. And believe me, that was a big, that's like leaving James Comey in because you thought it would look bad.
Why didn't they?
Because they heard from some of the people who love inspectors general on Capitol Hill, who happen to be a lot of Republicans, people with misplaced values who don't understand how awful inspector generals are and how incompetent they are.
Well, really quickly, just a follow-up. This is not unprecedented. Democrats are freaking out saying we have to have 30 days notice. But is that unprecedented, this just firing them without
Well, Barack Obama fired everybody, every U.S. attorney, every inspector general. And then Obama did something else. He didn't replace them because he didn't want inspectors general investigating his administration. Barack Obama was a conniving, sniveling, corrupt little abuser of power. He was very effective in what he did, just like people from socialist governments. They know how to control the government. They go in and get rid of the people who are going to undermine their exercise of authority. Trump did a pretty good job. I give him an A for getting rid of the inspector general. He just missed one.
Joe, this week we're going to, I'm sorry, Larry, I'm sorry.
Oh, we got plenty of time.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to ask your thoughts, Joe, on some of the hearings coming up for the nominees, particularly Kash Patel, FBI confirmation hearing this week. What are your thoughts on that? That's what
I was going to ask.
There
Perfect.
We go.
Well done.
Well, it's going to be interesting to watch Dick Durbin and all the great lefto-nutsos going after a person of color because they're not the perfect candidate that the Democrats would have put up. Kash Patel is a superb candidate. He's an unorthodox candidate, which is exactly what the FBI needs. Anybody who thinks that the FBI simply needs a change of leaders at the top that doesn't mean anything is an idiot. The FBI is a wreck. It's a wreck because James Comey and Christopher Wray and Paul Abate and all the Strux and the Pages and all those people destroyed it. I don't care how many former FBI assistant directors are on CNN or MSNBC. Right. Those people are all a disgrace.
All right, Joe, stay with us. It's a busy week, and we got a lot of things to talk about, including the end of the DEI programs and people threatening lawsuits over that, believe it or not.
Oh, good.
Plus, birthright citizenship, already the first court case major challenge for the new Trump administration, which was to be expected. And a breaking story, Trump has now officially reinstated every member of the military who were dismissed for refusing to take the COVID vaccine with full back pay and benefits. We want to get your immediate reaction to that breaking story coming up next. But first,
WMAL. Making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Joe diGenova continues with us. First, let's start with the DEI programs. They stayed true to their word. Again, one of the most extraordinary things about this first week is that Trump is literally doing everything that he promised to do, including ending DEI. It means it's remarkable how much money we're looking at here and how many people were employed in this diversity, equity, and inclusion regime. They all have to stay on paid leave, though, Joe, and this is part of the problem with the federal employees. But by doing this and highlighting the fact that we can't just fire them, he's actually putting the spotlight on a bigger issue with the federal government. Is there a way to solve this problem? Basically, we're just going to wait it out and hope these people quit? Can they ever end anything, Joe?
Well, yes, but it's going to require Congress to take some action that's going to be extremely difficult given the nature of the way power is balanced. And so what the president has to do is what he is doing, which is take executive action, either through orders or through the Office of Management and Budget and the Office of Personnel Management, reorganizing agencies, moving people around, transferring them from Washington, D.C. to Poughkeepsie, New York. What you have to do is move people. People will voluntarily retire when they know they're going to the Southwest or the Northwest or they're going up to the Canadian border.
Or Philadelphia.
People talk, go to Philadelphia where the mayor can't spell Eagles. Just go up.
That's right. That's perfect. It's where they belong.
I mean,
Columbus, Ohio.
Was that a classic? Was that a classic example of the failure of modern American education? A mayor of a major city who can't spell Eagles, and it's his team. By the way,
Joe,
on the way out the door, one thing that they didn't do when Christopher Wray retired was the president didn't have him on the list who got their security clearances taken away. Christopher Wray needs to have his security clearance taken away today.
Interesting. I hadn't noticed that. That's true. That's absolutely true. Hey, Joe, the birthright citizenship thing, I'm sure you saw the judge's argument striking this down, which we expected. This is going to go to appeal and eventually the Supreme Court. But, boy, the language he used in that argument, it sounded like he's auditioning for his job on MSNBC.
That was a juvenile opinion written by somebody who's been on the bench for more than 40 years, which means he's been on the bench too long. That was an anti-Trump tirade and rant. It was sophomoric. If you've read it, his comments from the bench were idiotic. I don't know whether he'll be overturned by the Ninth Circuit. It's hard to tell. That's become a very strange circuit. It's much more conservative than it used to be, but still not where it should be. The Supreme Court, they're going to have to confront this. There's just nothing they can do about it. They're going to have to deal with it. How they're going to end up, I can't tell you.
To pretend that there's no intellectual and legitimate argument, you can disagree with the argument. To pretend that there's no legitimate argument against birthright citizenship and to suggest that the 14th Amendment never imagined what we're seeing right now is just ignorant of the law. I don't understand how these people get to wear a black robe and be judges sometimes, Joe. But they're activists. They're not judges.
Absolutely. All you have to do is read the legislative history surrounding the 14th Amendment and the history that preceded it, the 1866 Civil Rights Act. And it's very obvious that Congress never intended illegal aliens, the children of illegal aliens, automatically to be citizens of the United States. They were dealing with slaves when they passed the 14th Amendment, making sure that the Dred Scott decision was overturned and making it clear that slaves were citizens of the United States and that their children were citizens of the United States, not somebody from Guatemala who came up here illegally through whatever pass he wanted to in Panama.
By the way, the fact that the justices came up with Dred Scott in the first place should actually solve my concerns that in my disillusionment that a judge would in some way get something wrong. Joe, quickly, Trump is now, it's breaking within this half hour. Trump has reinstated these service members, over 8,000 service members who were discharged under Biden. Due to the COVID vaccine. They're now reinstated with back pay and benefits. Are there legal hurdles? I'm guessing as commander-in-chief he can do this if he wants. Will there still be lawsuits? There were pending lawsuits. Does this exacerbate that? Does it solve the lawsuits? Or does it actually give people more reasons? Like, see, that this was wrong. It had to be reversed by the next president, so there could be even more?
Well, the bottom line is this is the victory of common sense over the last administration, over the Biden idiocy. These people never should have been relieved of their duties. This was a moral and medical decision they were making on their own. Now, it is true that the government can tell you what to do when you're in the military. It was an unwise decision. It may not have been an illegal decision to fire them, but it was a dumb decision. It hurt us from a readiness standpoint, and the recruiting was destroyed by it, absolutely destroyed. Forget the wokeness from Austin, 100%. Who disappeared on a weekly basis for 7 days at a time. Bottom line is a great the president has the authority to do this. He's the commander in chief. I don't know who's going to want to not be reinstated at least long enough to get their money and retire.
There you go. Well, listen, the combination of that move on the COVID discharges and then Pete Hegseth coming in and just sort of it's going to change recruitment. You're going to see record numbers of recruitment over the next 12 months. It's going to be remarkable.
I agree.
All right, Joseph, we got to leave it there. But you know what? As a fan of Southern California, because I know you spent some time out in Palm Springs, and I know you know Rick Grinnell pretty well as well. Seeing him sitting there with President Trump at that incredible press conference in the Palisades where Trump was going back and forth with that hat. Yeah, did you not love that? Was that not great?
I thought just watching Karen Bass just do everything she could to lick the boots of the President of the United States and watching him just slap her back every time. It was worth the price of admission. One of the great, just an amazing moment. I mean, this is a great president. I mean, he really understands the length and breadth of the presidency. It's just amazing.
It is. It's a beautiful thing to see. All right, Joe. Enjoy it. We'll talk next week.
Thanks,
Can't
Joe.
wait. Thank you. 7:23.
Now
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
7:36. It's O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here this Monday morning. We're catching up. We're drinking out of the fire hose. In breaking news, I'm sure you just heard that President Trump has officially now reinstated all service members who were dismissed unjustly over the COVID-19 shot. These are Navy SEALs who were at peak physical condition, who were not going to, even if they caught the bug, they would treat it just like that, like a bug. They'd squash it with their bare hands. It wasn't going to affect them, but they got dismissed because politics was more important than having a strong fighting force. This is so huge. Not only that they were reinstated with back pay and benefits, but it sends a message to all those people who are reluctant to join the military that this is a place where they want to be. We want warriors. This is so fantastic. Anyway, sorry. I digress. 8:05, Alfonso Aguilar, former DHS, talk about Rubio heading down to Central America. I'm Larry O'Connor. That's Julie Gunlock. Let's get right to it, Michael. Yes. Let's check in with the mayor of Philadelphia, how excited she is to go to the Super Bowl.
Let me hear you all say, E-L-G-L-E-S, Eagles! Let's go, Birds!
Yeah.
She should stick with birds.
Trevor Matich. How do you spell that? That's even harder. Trevor Matich. It's one thing to make it so close, and listen. I hold nothing against this team. What a year they gave us. We didn't deserve it. We're grateful for it. Incredible. But to lose to that team, to lose to the Eagles in Philadelphia and those fans, it's rough. But they were definitely the better team yesterday, without a doubt.
Yeah, Larry, they were the better team. The Eagles deserved to win, and at the same time, the Commanders deserved to lose. We talk a lot about how more games are lost than they are won. And that means you have turnovers. That means you have penalties at inopportune times. That means you drop passes, things like this. And in this game, the Commanders did what they haven't done for 2 months, and that is a whole bunch of things that caused them to lose the game. So you're right. It was a magnificent season, but there's a lot to learn from this loss to the Eagles.
Real fast, looking at this matchup, which is a rematch from a couple of seasons ago, who do you like in this game between the Eagles and the Chiefs? Is it too soon to sort of make a call? It seems like Chiefs seem unremarkable and unspectacular, but they just win.
Yeah, ordinarily I would take the Eagles because I think they have a better offensive line, but the Eagles' offensive line has a bunch of injuries. It didn't matter much against Washington because Washington had 4 turnovers that the Eagles turned into 4 touchdowns. But I think when you look at the injuries on the Eagles' offensive line is kind of an equalizer, and then you've got to go with the quarterback and the coach who've done it before. And that's the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid.
So if you're going to the office in Ashburn today as an executive or a part of the coaching team there for the Commanders, Trevor, and obviously you're proud of what you were able to accomplish. No one expected this, but now you've got something to build on, something impressive. What are you prioritizing? As because it starts now. I mean, I hate to say it, the draft is coming up. You got to start lining things up and getting ready and prepping. You got to sign people. You got to let people go. You got to figure it out. What's your priority if you're the Washington Commanders now for this next season? Because expectations will be high going in.
Right. Well, the two things you've got to really look at. One is the offensive line has had some good pieces. They did good things, but they weren't really great over the course of the season. And that led Washington to have the spectacular season from their young quarterback in Jaden Daniels. Daniels had to overcome a lot of times when the offensive line didn't run block very well. So Daniels was their leading rusher. That you shouldn't have your quarterback be your leading rusher in the NFL. Yeah. And the second thing was pass protection. I mean, he was able to make pass rushers miss and sneak out and make big plays, either running or throwing the ball down the field. And we all focused on Jaden Daniels and how great he was, but the team needs to focus on giving him more support from his offensive line. And then the defense, goodness sake, the defense, statistically one of the worst defenses in the NFL, especially against the run. They rose up, especially the last 8 weeks of the season or so, and made plays on defense when they had to. For example, they had 5 turnovers, 5 takeaways against Detroit in the playoffs, and that's how they were able to beat the Lions, even though they didn't really stop the Lions' offense other than the 5 turnovers. And so the defense needs to stop the run better. Their secondary needs to be shored up. Marshawn Lattimore either needs to perform better at corner or they need to get somebody who's going to perform better than he did. So there's a lot of work to do to shore everything up around their outstanding young quarterback and really an outstanding group of skill people in terms of running backs and receivers for Washington.
Right. It's interesting when you think about the oftentimes the harder positions to fill, those skill positions, the big money positions, quarterback, running back, wide receivers, they're set. It's really it's that offensive line to protect those guys and then obviously just to reassure. So in a way though, that's kind of an easier task, isn't it?
Well, in some ways it is because you can get guys that are unspectacular who can play well. For example, on the offensive line, you don't need big, massive superstars like you would want at wide receiver. You need guys that are steady, that play well together. And you can find guys like that. It's harder to find those elite cover guys on the back end on defense. So that's where really a big challenge will be for Washington. But the good news is this is probably the worst roster that Jaden Daniels will ever play with on this team.
That's a remarkable thing to consider.
Everywhere. Yeah, and Jaden Daniels will get better every season.
Yeah. So tough loss, but proud of the season and very hopeful for the future. Well, that's not a bad place to be.
No, it's great. And you know what? For the Washington fans who have spent the last 20 years trying to teach their children that, yes, this franchise was an elite franchise at one point before their kids were born, now they've got some validation for it. So the future looks really bright, especially for those long-suffering fans. You have been validated, fans. Good for you.
Trevor, you're such a fine gentleman, and I love talking to you every Monday, so I'll miss you in the offseason, but we'll touch base with you as news pops up, and certainly when the draft comes around. Thanks, Trevor.
Let's do, Larry. Thanks for having me on.
It is 7:44. Julie. Hey, remember Jewel, Julie?
Barely.
She's big in the 90s, right? Sort of that folk. She did that squeaky thing when she sang, like that thing.
Exactly.
She squeaked.
Yeah.
I would always, let's hear the squeak. All right.
Oh, well.
I always, I don't know why, but in my mind, I always confuse Jewel with Bjork.
How could you confuse those
Icelandic.
two?
I don't know.
That's bizarre.
They both had.
It's funny. My husband
they were
this weekend was like,
one name artists.
You brought up Bjork for some reason. He was like, gosh, she's still around? Sort of.
Yeah, Bjork was weird.
She was weird. Well, she was weird.
Jewel is in the news again. Jewel performed at the as a surprise performer at a special Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Party and ball after the inauguration or during the inauguration this week, and she's getting in trouble for it. Her fans don't like the fact that she sang for Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Yeah.
So what did Jewel do? She apologized
Yeah, they
and
always
groveled to them.
Yes.
Sounds like this.
And I am so sorry that I caused pain, especially in my LGBTQIA plus community, because you guys are treasures. You make the world a better place.
Really?
You've made my life
I
a
do
better
love that
place.
it's
Especially.
although you gay and trans people, because you just can't take it.
Yeah, but
I
this
love that they have to carve that out. I'm sorry I caused you pain, but especially you people.
This is my theory, Larry. I bet Jewel didn't know that RFK was anywhere near the Trump administration. I bet she was just like, oh, look, it's a Kennedy.
Right. Hey, Kennedy wants you to perform. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
he's cool. He's a liberal Dem.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Wait,
And
wait,
also,
what?
by
He's
the-
aligned with Trump?
Also,
What?
by the
when
way,
did that happen?
Also, by the way, and this just shows how stupid she is. Sorry, I know that's mean, but she's really dumb. When has RFK ever said anything against the LGBT community? When? Right? What?
Right.
Like,
When has Trump?
Well, when has Trump?
ever
No,
said-
exactly. No, I know. But I mean,
Other than saying that only men should
yeah, the
be in
sports, yeah, of
sports.
course,
Right,
and
we
like don't go into our
only
jails
women should be
and
in sports.
bathrooms and all. But it's just bizarre to me to when she says especially, like, as if I don't know.
Yes.
RFK is still a liberal Democrat. He's not changed a lot of what he believes in terms of politics and
does-
social issues.
Well, hopefully, by the way, I hope this moves Robert F. Kennedy even further to the right when he sees the totalitarians on the left and what they do to this. Jewel shows up, she sings Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and now she's got to publicly apologize on her social media.
cry.
By the way, she says, I was just there because I'm an advocate for mental health. No, she's showing that she's got her own mental health issues by even acquiescing to these nutbags. Thank you, Jewel. Thanks for playing. It's a new rule, new era, new rules, and you violated them. Sorry. You're supposed to tell people, hey, I'll do what I want. You don't like it? Move on. Thank you. 7:53.